Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. It is time for our monthly edition of What's New at Ancestry. This is for February 2017. It is Roots Tech Week here in Utah, so we've got a lot going on. That means this will be short and sweet, but I do want to start off by talking about Roots Tech just a little bit. It kicks off tomorrow, that's February 8th, runs through Saturday the 11th up in Salt Lake City. This is the largest genealogical conference in the world. They're expecting, I think, 5,000 to 6,000 people in attendance at the event. They're expecting another 25,000 people to watch online. So let's talk about that online option for just a minute. If you're not able to attend Roots Tech in person, they are offering streaming for the entire 4 days of the conference. They will be streaming different classes and events. One of my classes will be streamed on Saturday afternoon. Here's where you can find that complete schedule. If you go to rootstech.org/live-stream-schedule. That's rootstech.org/live-stream-schedule. The streaming schedule is listed there. It gives the times for each of the presentations, the topics, and the presenters' information. It will just stream directly from their website. So if you just go to rootstech.org, starting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, all of these times are in Mountain Time. If you just go to rootstech.org, you'll be able to watch those. On the streaming schedule page, they do have some help. So if you have a little bit of struggle with your streaming schedule, you can get some help there, check some technical things on your end, make sure everything is going to be working correctly. After the conference, recordings of these sessions will be available online. So if there's something you want but you're not available at that time, be sure to check back to the Roots Tech website. They will have these recorded sessions available. However, they will only be available for a limited period of time on their website. So they're not going to be available indefinitely, and they haven't exactly stated what a limited amount of time is. It could be a week, it could be a month, I have no idea. So I would encourage you, tune in if you can during the event. One of the other things that you can do is you can follow along if you are on Twitter with the hashtag RootsTech. That way you can see things that people are learning in their classes, that they're tweeting out, some of the events going on. Maybe it might even convince you to join us next year. Other events coming up in 2017. We have the National Genealogical Society's annual conference, NGS. That this year is being held in Raleigh, North Carolina. It'll be the 10th through the 13th of May. NGS is one of those conferences that rotates cities every year. So if one of these events is not in a city near you or a city you can easily get to, keep your eyes open for 2018, as some of these events will change cities. Roots Tech never changes. The other thing that never changes is the Genealogy Jamboree, hosted by the Southern California Genealogical Society. It is always held in Burbank, California, and it's the second weekend in June. This year it's the 9th through the 11th. And it is one of my favorite genealogy conferences. The hotel is literally across the street from the airport. You could walk from the terminal to the hotel. And it's just a super fun event. Burbank is a fairly easy airport to get in and out of, so if that's something that you can put on your calendar, we would love to have you join us there. The International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies, IAJGS, is one of those conferences that rotates cities every year. This year it will be in Orlando, Florida in July. Now, Orlando in July doesn't sound very thrilling to those of us who live in snow, but the IAJGS conference is a week packed full from dawn till way, way after dark starts, with a lot of really great classes, workshops, labs. They usually have movie screenings. They have a game night. It is a just intense and wonderful genealogy conference, and it will be at a Disney property this year. So I don't ever have to leave the hotel, which makes me happy. FGS, the Federation of Genealogical Societies, is an umbrella organization, or it's an organization of which local and state genealogical societies, a lot of them are a part of, and they put on a big conference at the end of the summer every year. Again, it rotates every year. This year it will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the 30th of August through the 2nd of September. Now, one of the things that I love about these rotating conferences, Raleigh and Pittsburgh in particular this year, is that I have ancestry from those places. And most of these conference organizers try really hard to schedule these conferences near archives or other important record repositories, because as many wonderful records are online, those of us who've been doing genealogy for a while know that a lot of records are not yet online. So I'm excited to go to Raleigh and to be able to do some research in some archives there. I'm excited to go to Pittsburgh, just a little bit west of Pittsburgh in Steubenville, Ohio, is where my family lived during the Civil War, or one branch of my family tree lived there. And so I've got some research to do there that I'm really excited about. So even if you don't live in one of these cities or near one of these cities, if you have ancestors who lived there, it's always a good idea to look seriously at attending one of those conferences, because not only will the classes, several of them, be geared toward research in that local area, but you then can maybe tack on a day at the beginning or a day at the end after you've learned what you need to learn, and go spend some time in some of those archives. I will be at every one of these events this year. Ancestry will have a presence there. I would love to meet you. So if you're going to be at Roots Tech this week in particular, please come find me in the Ancestry booth and say hello. Okay, let's talk briefly just about some of the content highlights this month. Ancestry has added more than 11 million records this month. I just want to point out a few of the larger collections that we've got. For those of you who've never joined us for a What's New episode before, let me just quickly show you where you can find the new content and how you can keep up with that. If you just go to search and then scroll down here to the card catalog, and the card catalog is a listing of all the databases that Ancestry has. And if you can sort that then by date added, it will put all the new stuff at the top of the list. We leave this little new tag on our databases for about 90 days after we publish them. If you hover over the name of the database, just move your mouse over that, you're going to see the date it was published, and a little brief description of that database. And then for any of these records, if you go into the specific database, scroll down past the search box, you're going to see either a detailed database description or a link to an article that has more details about this particular description. Now, this province of Girona, Spain, municipal records dating back to 1566 is a perfect example of something that I just want to share with you. Not all records available on Ancestry are indexed yet, which means you could do 1 million searches and never find a record from this particular collection. These are what we call our image first records, which means Ancestry got access to these images. We wanted to make these records available to you as quickly as possible. They may not be indexed for several years. And so you'll notice there is no search box for this collection because they are not yet indexed, therefore they are not yet searchable. So over here under the browse box, you can actually browse to see, is the specific town where my family lived in that province available? Is the specific parish available? What record types are available for what year ranges? So that's just a really quick, easy way to see if the record you want even exists. And if it does, then you can simply click on the record type with the correct year range. And then just like you would a reel of microfilm that you got through a Family Search Family History Center, you can scroll through those records. I love doing that even when I do have search capabilities for a couple of reasons. One, it helps me become familiar with the records, how they're organized, what kind of information is included. It helps me start to learn how to read them. These particular records date back to the 1500s. It starts in 1540, right? They're in Spanish, sometimes church records. These are municipal records, but church records sometimes have things recorded in Latin. And so it helps me become familiar enough with the language to be able to read through the record. I use Google Translate quite a bit because I don't speak Spanish or Latin or German or any of the other languages that sometimes the genealogical records come in, but they're still completely usable if I just take the time to understand the records a little bit and then use some of the translation tools that are available out there. So those are our image first records. That's one reason why becoming familiar with how to work the card catalog to see what records are available is really important. Now, Ancestry this past month added a couple million records out of Prussia. These are Prussian provinces. They are selected Lutheran baptisms, marriages, and burials from 1661 to 1944. So this huge range, a lot of really great records, 2.4 million of them. They're all in a single database. Now, these records are in German, so keep that in mind when you are searching. Keep in mind some of the name spellings might be wildly different than what you expected, especially if you're looking at someone who is a first generation to immigrate from Prussia to the United States or Canada. You'll want to make sure that the name wasn't changed or Americanized or anglicized in any way. If it was, you'll need to search all those different variants. But these Lutheran church records, I've used them extensively already. Ancestry has a collection of them out of Brandenburg and Posen, which is where my family was from. And so these are just really rich, great records. They give details about the parents. You'll have information about witnesses. Witnesses very often were extended family members. So you start to be able to reconstruct families very quickly with some of these old Lutheran church records out of Prussia. The next collection I want to mention briefly is actually in several separate databases from the Isle of Jersey. They are Church of England records, and they cover a 400-year time span from 1540 through 1940. A lot of these 1500s records, for those of us who've been doing genealogy for a long time, you know that's kind of where we start hitting the wall of where records no longer exist. So from about middle 1700s back to the middle 1500s, there are records that exist, and we're just starting to see a lot of them come online, and that's really exciting to have, to be able to take our family trees back another couple hundred years using original records. So like I mentioned, these are going to be in several separate databases. You're going to see them right here in the center, 150,000 Church of England marriage records out of Jersey, a couple, almost 100,000 here, deaths and burials. And then here is a single collection of baptisms, marriages, and burials. Now, one of the questions I get is, why the separate databases? Well, it has to do with the way that the original records were kept. From 1540 till about 1812, typically the Church of England records were all kept in a single ledger. The parish priest would just record, performed this baptism, performed this marriage, performed this burial, performed this marriage, and you end up with these records sometimes intermixed with each other. It wasn't until later that sometimes those records became separated enough that we could actually separate them into distinct databases, which means if you're looking back in the 15, 16, early 1700s, you're going to need to use a database that is combined. So be careful. Think about what it is that you're searching for, and don't put in information that you don't need. So for example, if you're looking for a marriage, even if you know when the person died, putting a death date into the search box is not going to help you at all if you're looking for a marriage record, right? So think about what kind of information might be included on the record that you're searching for and search for that information. So those are the Jersey Church of England records. Then we have several databases from Belgium, and these are going to be civil registrations. So just a quick recap about the difference. Church records typically include baptisms, marriages, and burials. Civil registration is the government registration of births, marriages, and deaths. So there are things that are handled by the church, and a lot of times that information overlaps. Sometimes you can find both a civil record and a church record for an individual. Sometimes you're only going to find one or the other. So these Belgian records are civil registration, again, dating back to the 1500s. If we scroll down here, you'll see these are in separate databases based on location. So we have Antwerp, Belgium, we have Brabant, we have Namur, we have Liège, we have East Flanders. There are a couple of others that were added this month. Keep in mind, these particular records are in French. So again, you don't have to speak the language to be able to read the records. Typically, records like this are recorded in a standard format, even if there is not an official form. So you'll see kind of similar information. So once you run a record or two through Google Translate, you start to understand, whose names are listed where in the record and what some of the basic words mean. As a matter of fact, very often when I dive into foreign language records, I will create a little cheat sheet list from a Translate program about some of the basic genealogy words. What is the word for born, died, married, son, daughter, father, mother, so that I have an idea when I look at a record what some of those basic words are. Okay, last record collection I want to talk about today, and then I have to go finish getting ready for Roots Tech, is the Delaware marriage records. So last month, if you joined us, you know that Ancestry added like 80 million some odd records, and the majority of them were marriage records for various states in the United States. At this time, what we did is the Delaware marriage records were included. They just came in this month instead of last month. They date back to 1750. They go through 1954. There are a couple million of them. And so if you have family here in the United States from the Eastern Seaboard or that migrated in or through there or lived there for any period of time, those records are pretty great records available. Some of the marriage records include detailed information about parents' names and ages and occupations. Some are just a ledger, which just include the name of the bride and the groom and the date that they were married, sometimes maybe who they were married by. That who they were married by piece, though, sometimes can lead you to additional information. If they were married by a justice of the peace, maybe not. But if they were married by a minister of the gospel, find out what religion that particular individual was affiliated with. You might be led to church records that will include more information than the civil registration records include. Well, that is all I have prepared for you today. Again, I hope you will join us at Roots Tech in person in Salt Lake City this week. If not, please join us online at that streaming website at rootstech.org. And lots of really great things planned this week. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.